I'm rolling.
Cool. All right. Welcome back, everyone.
Hey guys.
It's another amazing episode of Snacks and Chats. And we are joined by the co-founder and head coach at City Kickboxing, Eugene Bareman. Welcome.
Yep, thank you for having me.
I know that it's a personal goal of yours to do less media this year, so we appreciate you being here. Thank you for joining us. It's been a huge year for you. How are you feeling in 2020 after such an epic year?
Less international media, less unnecessary media. This is necessary. You must always give your local people as much support as you can. So that was like, just to clarify that a little bit.
Thank you.
I'm very happy.
No shots taken.
Yeah, I'm very happy to do local media, but I get inundated with international stuff, which gets a little bit like overwhelming sometimes. But this is this is my first podcast ever, which this is as a side note, I said I would never go on a podcast to Dan Hooker in Israel, who used to run a podcast.
I love their podcast. You never went on there. You refused your own fighters.
I refused to go on the podcast. But what I'm going to do, I know that podcast is since doesn't run anymore, but I know Dan is getting another podcast started up. I'm not sure whether it'll involve Israel, but if Dan listens to this, I will appear on your podcast. That's a promise. But yeah, this is my first podcast. Back to the question, which was 2020. Like a really 2019 was obviously a massive year, and going into 2020, I feel happy and confident and in a good headspace that we can replicate what we did in 2019. Yeah.
We will get to all of that, but first I'm going to ask you what we ask everyone on this podcast, and that's when people ask you where you're from, what do you tell them?
I tell them I'm half Samoan, half Dutch, and I'm from New Zealand. I have learned in more detail where I'm from. The villages I'm from in Samoa, and funnily enough, in Holland, everything gets divided into villages too. If you're lucky enough to come from villages, very proud that I'm half Samoan. I'm also very proud that I'm half Dutch. Both those flags on different occasions, I have taken with me into a fight. You know, when you're walking out to your fight, I've carried both those flags at different times, and but I'm also super proud to be a Kiwi, and I probably consider myself more of a Kiwi than any of those other two. But that doesn't mean it doesn't take away anything from those other two cultures. I'm very proud that I'm from there as well, but I'm definitely a Kiwi. Yeah.
And where did you grow up, and where in New Zealand do you feel like is home for you?
My hood is Massey, out in West Auckland. That's where I grew up. That's where both my parents still live. I still have family there. I still visit there all the time. And again, somewhere I'm very proud to say that I grew up in Massey. I went to the local high school, played for the local rugby team. And I'm very happy that I had my childhood out in West Auckland at Massey. Yeah.
What is it about Massey, what is it about that makes you proud to be from there?
Massey is a funny place. Like, it is like, I feel like you have both two socioeconomic groups there. You have some of the poverty that you'd get in some lower socioeconomic areas like South Auckland, and then you get some of the wealth like you'd have in higher socioeconomic areas like in Takapuna and stuff, and it's the coming together of those out west in Massey. So it gives you those two perspectives when you're growing up, if the people can understand that.
So you feel like you can kind of walk between both those worlds from growing up there?
Definitely feel like I'm more comfortable with both those worlds instead of having been like, only shared one of them. Yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable in both worlds. Like I've had a more broader perspective than other people might have. Yeah.
And what was it about growing up there, or your childhood, or what was it in your life that drew you towards combat sport? You mentioned that you played rugby for your school.
Yeah.
Like, what was it? Yeah, what was it that took you there?
Now, I was definitely... I come from a rugby family, so you play rugby. Like as soon as you can start walking, you play rugby. My dad's a big rugby man. And so I got into like the physicality of rugby. I got into that early and I grew up with it. And back in those days, you didn't like rip the tags off the shorts and stuff. Like when you were like 3 or 4, other kids were tackling you and trying to dump you on your head and stuff. Like there was no like touch rugby to feed you in gradually. So I grew up with the physicality of rugby. In the end, if you like, how I ended up fighting many years later was partly because of rugby, because I ended up in a place where I was a first 15 captain and stuff, and I left school and went to play for the Prem team, the local Prem team, and they didn't put me in the positions that I wanted. They didn't pick me, basically. And I thought, being young and naive and stupid and full of myself, I spat the dummy. I was like, wow, man, I'm pretty good. Like, I was this and I was that. And always in hindsight, you see that I was just an idiot. But they were picking this older guy who had already been there, who was like, obviously way better than me. But I spat the dummy and left the sport. And how I found fighting and stuff was I needed something to do that had the same physicality of rugby and could take care of that for me. And then I walked into a fighting gym, and then I never went back, stepped on a rugby field for another 15 years or something after that. So that was how I found fighting, because of my immaturity. And but at the end of the day, everything happened for a reason, and it all kind of led me to the position I'm in now, which is a pretty good one. Yeah,
that's interesting because Alex Volkanovski, who is the new champion in his division, comes from a rugby league background, and people always mention that, and I'd always kind of wondered how that sort of works with fighting, or what sort of qualities of that actually goes into fighting. Is there any crossover there?
There's the physicality, like there's that thing about you've got to get in there with other men and you've got to like physically dominate them, and there's a mental side to that as well. There's that part of it. For the most part, like rugby players, especially seasoned rugby players, professionals, seem to me to make very terrible fighters. Most of them. Most of them.
Yeah.
Like they just have got used to different movement patterns that we have. The best rugby fighters, the best rugby players that make fighters are ones you capture a little bit earlier. Yep. Like around first 15 level or high school level.
So kind of
before they're set in their ways and they're so muscle bound and stiff and slow, and but for the most part, professional rugby players, one that've been in the sport for a long time, don't make good fighters. You gotta capture them a bit earlier than before they become professionals. Otherwise, they don't make very good fighters. There's going to be some professional rugby players.
They'll catch some feelings about that.
There are friends of mine who are going to be like, what? Well, you wait. Yeah.
I mean, like we were saying before, 2019 was a huge year. You've mentioned all the international media that you've been getting, making history, being nominated for the Halberg Awards, being named Coach of the Year and all of that. But it's been about 12 years since you opened City Kickboxing, is that right? And almost 20 years since you began Muay Thai. Can you give us a sense of what things were like coming up as a fighter back then. I guess how difficult that was for you.
I started fighting, I mean, definitely, and it's always going to be like this. Like, the future's always going to hold more opportunities. But definitely when I started fighting, the opportunities that are available to fighters now to make a living of the sport, they just weren't there. They were much harder to come by. And so what you essentially had was a whole bunch of amateurs, but they were putting a full-time commitment on the sport, and not really, the reward wasn't really justifying the
Like,
amount
what
of,
would you get paid for a fight?
man, for an MMA fight, sometimes $300 or something.
Yeah.
Wow, and all the work you put in.
$500
Yeah.
for 8 to 12 weeks, 3 months of your life. You can't, you can work that out what that is a week, but only,
Not much.
yeah, there's laws against paying people that much in this country, so it doesn't. So, but it was a different time, and you just did it because you loved the sport, you loved the martial arts, you loved the challenge, you loved fighting. It definitely wasn't motivated by money like it is nowadays.
Yeah.
Nowadays, the type of kid that walks through my gym nowadays is a lot different to the type of kid that I was. And I wasn't really a kid, I was in my early 20s, but the type of kid that was walking into a gym like 15, 20 years ago. It's a way different type of kid. These guys see fighting as like a proper, viable option to make a living.
Yeah.
Whereas before,
And also potentially to be a star as well.
to be a star.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we can go deep with this, but...
Yeah, let's go deeper. Yeah, let's do it.
But kids nowadays, and there's many reasons why this might be happening, but their sense of reality is a lot different. Whether that's for the better or for the worse, but back in the day, like, you definitely were aware that only a very small percentage of people actually become All Blacks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or become professional fighters that earn enough to living, all whites, black caps. That was, so you were always taught or it was always drummed into you that you can never hang everything on that. You've got to have this and that and that. Whereas, nowadays it's a lot different. Maybe it's to do with social media, maybe it's to do with the new generation of parents that are coming through nowadays and their outlook on life, but there's definitely kids that come through and they're hanging and putting all their eggs in that basket. And it's such a, such a gamble, such a massive gamble to hang everything on the fact that you might be a UFC superstar one day, when only the tiniest percentage of people actually get to do it. It's puts me in a very difficult position quite regularly.
Yeah.
Because you want to, if a kid has a dream and comes through the door, you want to harness it. You never want to be the person that is a dream killer. That is, you don't want to be that negative Nancy and be like, yeah, but, one thing I'm never going to do is, turn around and say to that person, only a tiny percentage of people ever do that. Like, maybe you should, that's not what you're going to do. That's not how you, you build an environment conducive to, making people's dreams happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of have to do the same thing in my job because I work in a music studio and I've got rappers coming through and they all think they're going to be the next thing, and it's like...
It's crazy.
Well,
and
probably not, bro.
Yeah.
But
you don't want to be
I'll still do my best.
Yeah, you just do your best.
Yeah.
You just do your best, and then part of what I do part of what I do, what I've increasingly become a part of my job now is not just the coaching part of it, but a little bit, I guess you could put in a category of kind of parenting or mentoring. So you get someone like that come through. Yes, I'm trying to like help them realize their dream, but I'm also trying to make them become a person that if their dream doesn't happen, they will be mentally prepared for that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, because sometimes when they come in, they're not. So that's also, as the years have gone by, definitely a part of my, seems to be a part of my job description more and more. Yeah.
And what was, I guess, especially back in those early days, what were some of the toughest things that you came across in terms of just, I guess, dedicating your life to this thing that, as you said, was quite hard to live off?
You just begged, stealed and borrowed, to be honest. I was lucky enough to have a partner that was stood by me through that. Still with me now, and it's just that side was hard, and I was a person that had kids very, very young. I think I might have been still at high school, I think. And I'm trying to follow this dream, and there's not a lot of fruits for all my labour to put on display.
Yeah.
And you become a little bit reliant on your partner and your family and your families, and that's hard. And there's professional fighters out there, and I know this is tugging on their heartstrings right now, me talking about this, because this is one of the very hard parts of the sport. Becoming reliant on these people, partners, family, and not being able to give anything back, that becomes very hard on you. And you're like selling them a dream, but it's hard for you to like describe it and show it and let them know what you're trying to achieve. And I could only imagine, and I've never really asked my family or my partner or whether they thought I would ever get to the position I'm in now. But I'm sure at one stage my family and she would have been like, it would have been very testing for her, because we could have never gone down the road that we were down. We were going down forever. But maybe I was fortunate enough to turn that dedication back then into something that I've got to work and provide for my family nowadays. Yeah, but for every story like mine, and especially in New Zealand, there's not many. Man, trust me, there's 1,000 fighters that have been before me, whose names aren't in the record books, who struggled and got nothing, and then fell away to time. Yeah. That's it. That's a little bit depressing to be honest.
No, but it's interesting.
It's the truth. It's the truth. Before me, there's literally been, we have a big combat history, and there's been a lot of fighters, and they fight professionally, and they come and they go. They don't have much to show for the fruits of their labour. And then there's, every now and then, there's someone like me who manages to do okay out of it. And And
then there'll be some points where you're like, well, do I have to pack this in now? Did you ever have those moments where you're like, I've got to...
Every professional fighter in New Zealand at least will go through that all the time, because there's... You have your circle of friends which are fighters, but then you also have other friends from other circles, and most of them have jobs, and most of them at the time where we're still living like we're teenagers, most of them have got mortgages and cars and starting to have families, and we're still living like we did when we were at high school. You know, on next to nothing, in mum's basement, getting fights where we can, you know, no responsibilities, partying a little bit too much where they've all grown up a little bit, but we're partying and living life a little bit too much because we have, you know, we don't have the responsibilities that they have.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, definitely. yeah.
You can draw parallels again to the musician life as well with that, eh?
Yeah, I see a lot of parallels there as well. Yeah, it's just not living a regular life.
Yep.
And it, and again, on the surface, to a lot of other people, it can seem like everything's like hunky-dory and going well. But
you got the best job ever.
Yeah, but underneath it, man, there's a lot of turmoil and struggle going on.
Hard work and anxiety.
Yeah, you only get to see the music video.
Yeah.
Or the fight that's on TV, but all the layers underneath it, people don't get to see. Yeah.
And even, I think even back then, probably if you did have something to show for your labour, there would be no one to, I guess, present that to the public, or there wasn't that kind of interest, I suppose. I know, looking back at how people treated Mark Hunt when he was huge, but here it was people didn't know who he was or didn't, give him his dues.
There was bugger all mainstream media focus, 100%. But also what you were fighting for was like something that wasn't really tangible. Like it was a feeling, and you could do your best to describe it to people. Say, this is why I do it, but it's so hard to describe unless you've been in it. So like trying to get that across to family, like, oh, this is why I do it, because I go through this feeling. Well, that feeling is there's only one place in the world you can get that feeling, and that's if you actually fight. So again, like, it's not tangible. You're not like trying to sell people, your family, on that. They're like, what are you talking about?
You're like, just get in the ring, man.
They'll never get it. They'll never get it because it's so hard to encapsulate that feeling in words. So yeah.
It's easy sometimes to look back and go, oh, that was the moment. But did you get a sense as it was happening that the tide was changing, that things were starting to happen for you and your gym and your fighters?
There's a few pivotal moments. Like what a lot of people don't realise, when I started this gym, for the first, probably the first half of this gym's existence, we ran the gym at a loss. And so we had to prop up the gym with money from other places. Yeah, right. We just had to look between the couch and find some money. Yeah. But back to the question, like one of the pivotal moments is when one year we actually made a little bit of money. And we were like, what?
Wow, what happened?
The accountants back at us, and we're like, what? We don't know this and this and this. Like, oh, we didn't, One good thing about running a business at a loss is you never have to pay much taxes.
Yeah, I was going to say you had to pay tax that year.
So we actually got a tax bill that we had to pay, and we're like, what the hell? And then we were like, why do we have to give this money away? This is the first time we made money. And now we have to give some of it away. But that was a pivotal moment. And then what happened after that is every subsequent year after that, we made a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And we just built the momentum from there. But this comes back to a question that people always ask me, like, why? Like, what's the key to success and all of that? Well, one of the keys to success was just doing it because we loved it. Yeah. Not because of money. Because if you think about that story, the business never made money for 6 years. Most people, when they run a business, if it hasn't made money for a year, they fold it. If they said, like, this isn't worth it. 2 years, you get the odd person, like going, oh, we'll push it out another year. And then definitely people that run their business for 3 years and it doesn't make money, they're out. They cut their losses and they're out. Well, we did it for like 5 or 6 years. And the only reason we were able to do that because we didn't care.
Yeah.
We didn't care. We were like, okay, man, we don't have much money. We don't get to, we don't get some of the fancy things that all our friends get to. But we were enjoying every single day of the year.
You were still getting a lot out of it.
Yeah, we were loving it. And that made it worthwhile for us. We were like, oh, man, we'll stick it out. At least we love what we're doing. And so the passion got us through through those hard times. And then, again, fortunate enough to turn it around slowly. Yeah. And then, And then the other pivotal moment probably when... I knew that maybe the tide was changing a bit was when Israel had we traveled the world and fought all over the world, but then we were lucky enough to get a Chinese organization contract us to represent China. So basically for Israel to be some sort of pseudo Chinese citizen. And at that point, we were able to fight for substantially more money than we'd ever fought for. And when we had that first fight and we got that paycheck, that was probably the first time I had got money and I wasn't doing it at a loss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because most of the time, your fighters are fighting for minuscule amounts. You're on the other side of the world for a week. So I'm missing a week of work back here. They're getting paid $1,000, giving me $100. I missed out on whatever work I could have been doing at home. Yeah. Plus, half the time there, you've got to buy food and all of that. Like you don't make any money from traveling the world and fighting until you can get to a level where they start paying you decent money. So when he got that first check and I got it, and I was like, and he gave me my money. I was like, wow, it was actually worthwhile for me coming and spending 7 days in China for you.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I was like, I couldn't believe it because I'd been doing it for years and taking many hundreds of fighters overseas, and each time losing out big time. Yeah.
You must have felt good.
It was good. It was good not to have to put my own money into that. And so that first time that happened was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was that? Do you remember?
Apologies. No, I'm no good with that.
Yeah.
I ain't no good with that. But yeah, quite a few years ago.
I've heard you say before that the success that your team and fighters have experienced in the past year, this came quicker than you expected. So is there a worry with that at all? Is it, do you feel like maybe, I guess it's a lot all at once, right? No, I think we can deal with it. Nice.
Yeah,
Good.
I think we can deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's not a worry. It's not a worry at all. It's just that with the way that these organizations work, sometimes you expect a very long journey to get to where some of the places are, like Kai, like Dan, Israel champion, obviously. There's a lot of politics behind the fight game. And you have to work through all those politics to get yourself into certain positions to climb and climb and climb and climb. We were lucky enough to do a great job in the fights, but also in the background. You know, what happens, outside of the fight, in the boardroom, so to speak. We were able to do a fantastic job where these fighters were able to, elevate themselves very quickly.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect us to be so good at that, the business side of things.
Yeah.
Where did you learn that from, the politicking?
From day one.
Right.
From day one, from right here in my backyard, when you're dealing with the local promoters, local managers, local coaches, other people putting on fights, other gym owners. You learn all of that, how to deal with people, the business side of the sport. You learn it all here. Everything is learned here. Yeah.
So is it the people you're dealing with now, do you find that almost easier than, I imagine, I guess, collecting your money back then and all that kind of stuff? That would have probably been a bit tougher with local promotions, maybe.
Collecting your money is a lot easier.
Yeah.
But everything else is a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder when you're dealing with these big blue chip companies. They are ruthless. They are cutthroat. You are just a person with a dollar sign hanging above their head. Like when you walk into a casino, that's all you are, right? Yeah. You're just money waiting to be spent.
And it's just a contract. It's legal.
It's all papered up, and they don't. It's all about money and what they can get off you and what you can get off them, and you just have to adjust. Like in New Zealand, like when I'm dealing with these sort of things in New Zealand, everything's a lot more cordial. Like I'm dealing with people that I grew up with or came up in the industry with me, and they're Kiwis. Like we're all Kiwis, we're all cool, we're all good natured, we all get on with each other. But it's a lot different overseas. It's a lot more cutthroat, and also that's got to do with the economics. Like we're just dealing with substantially more and huge amounts of money. So everybody's trying to save a dollar. It's definitely a cutthroat business at the top level. Yeah.
This might seem like a really obvious question with an obvious answer, but like how important is trust for you with your fighters? And I guess when do you know that that's mutual as well between?
Trust is like paramount. You have to have trust. It's one of the most important things in a coaching teacher-student role. Without the bonds of trust, if they don't trust in what I'm teaching them and the path I'm taking them down and the strategy that me and my coaches are pressing on them, then there's not going to be any confidence. And if there's no confidence, then there's no success. It's just a flow-on effect. Like they have to, and it goes both ways. We have to trust them as well. We have to trust that we aren't wasting our time. That we're not putting on all this work, all this video analysis, all this consultation with other coaches, all these conversations, all this time and energy that we're putting in. We have to know that, that we're doing it for a reason, that they're just not going to turn around and just like do something completely different. Otherwise, why have we put in all that effort? The trust definitely has to be mutual. To earn each other's trust, it just takes time. And a lot of that's got to do with the character, with you as a person, like how you come across. Yeah. And I feel I've earned most of my fighters' trust. Sometimes previous experience has a little bit to do with that too. Like they all know where I've come from. Yeah, like if they most of them have been around long enough where probably I was still fighting when they started fighting. They saw me fight, they know that I've been through the same rigors as them, done a lot of the things that they've done, and that comes with a certain amount of respect and trust, knowing that I was a fighter too, and I've made that walk many times as well. That helps with trust, but it's just something that has to be built over time. And it's there's no such thing as, like it doesn't ceiling out. There's no ceiling on it. You can get, like they trust me now, but in 5 years' time, hopefully they trust me even more. So, yeah, that answers the question.
Yeah. Shall we? Let's talk about UFC Auckland coming up.
Yep.
Dan Hooker is, you know, he's the main guy, the main event. It must be incredibly satisfying to see those posters of him up there. You've got Kara-France on there as well, Brad Riddell.
Amazing that New Zealanders who live a kilometre away from that big stadium and and train almost right next to it are going to be the focal point of that event, because we've had them here before, but we haven't had that type of connection. There's been Mark Hahn, who trained out of Australia. There's been Jamie Tahona, who's trained out of Australia. Like, there's been connection there, and very happy, very proud of that. But this is this is a different type of connection. That's that's literally our front doorstep. Yeah, and it's amazing that those guys are going to be the focal point, especially Dan. I think every fighter wants to be the main event of an event one day. Not every fighter gets there, whether it be local event or some massive event. I think every fighter wants to get there. I know Dan was one of Dan's goals to headline an event, and especially to headline the card in his hometown where he grew up, and we all grew up. Is amazing. Kai's, for the most part, has lived most of his life in Auckland, and Brad, for the past 4 or 5 years at least, has lived in Auckland. He is a very proud Cantabrian guy from, he's proud of his roots, being down in Christchurch, but he has to understand that, now this has been his home for the last 4 or 5 years. He drinks lattes like the rest of us. So we've bred the South out of him. You'll now see him cross-legged on Ponsonby Road every other day, drinking a latte with a little marshmallow on top. So that we're all Aucklanders, we're all Kiwis, and we're all at the pinnacle of this event. It's massive for all of us. Yeah.
What's the buzz like in the gym at the moment? It must be incredible.
Incredible, yeah, absolutely incredible. We had a big contingent in Melbourne, but this is different because, we always use a lot of battle metaphors. Like, we're going into Melbourne and we're gonna invade Melbourne, we're gonna take over. But for this one, we're defending our home. So that's the theme we're using. That's the metaphor we're using. We're on the castle walls defending our home, and no one's going to come in here and take our land, what belongs to us. Yeah. And that's how it is.
And Israel has just had a huge fight announcement up against Yoel Romero.
Yeah.
What can you... this is something that you've been working towards for a little while now, right?
Yeah. Israel's going to be an invader for the rest of his career. I would love for him to fight and defend his home turf one day, but for the most part, he's going to be an invader. But yeah, we've been working on that. It's just, like I said before, the politics, what happens behind the scenes, sometimes that takes longer to clear up. But now that fight's been announced, and it's only a couple of weeks after Auckland, so again, when you're talking about the atmosphere at the gym, it's just mad at the moment. Like, when you get so many guys fighting, and at the start of the year, you have this influx of the other fighters, the amateurs and the semi-professionals, that have all sat around doing nothing. They want to get started with the year. So I've got
new year, new me people. Yeah.
Well, fighters are new year, new me people too.
Right.
Yeah. They're like, hey, last year I only had 3 fights. This year I'm going to have 6, which means I need my first fight in February. So right now, I had 75 people sparring this morning where I've just come from. I had 80 last Monday, and I had 75 the Saturday before that. Like, these are crazy numbers. Like, I can barely fit them in. So the start of the year is so busy, not just for those UFC guys, but for everybody else. And that's created an amazing atmosphere in the gym. Yeah.
And what is it about Romero that interests you both so much? It seems like something that you both really wanted.
I think, every coach and every opponent sees this, but I think we see some pretty distinct and clear weaknesses that we can take advantage of. And although we respect what Romero would do, the path that we see is... we see a very a clear and distinct path to victory that's a lot different to what a lot of other people are seeing. And we would like this fight to be a real showcase of how to dominate someone, and dominate someone that people have this impression that can't be dominated.
Yeah.
Because no one's been able to impressively beat him in the same way that Alex beat Max. Just a whitewash. Just, you can't argue with it.
Yeah.
That's what we'd like to do. If the fight gets like a little bit, like if it gets like the Gastelum fight, of course we prepare for that, but we would like to do a Alex Volkanovski on Yo Romero. We believe we see that. That's what we see. We believe we can see that potential. Yeah.
And lastly, you have about 2 more fights to go yourself, right? You want to reach that 50 mark. When are you fighting?
Yeah. I'm on 48 fights if I count them all up between kickboxing, boxing, MMA, whatever. And for me, it seems, and I still feel relatively healthy. I don't feel that healthy at the moment. But in terms of all these lollies in front of me and stuff. But in terms of injuries and stuff and brain trauma and stuff, I feel very healthy. And it just seems like a shame to me to stop at 48 when that big round number of 50 is sitting right there.
Oh, yeah.
And, a fight's only 15 minutes long.
It's only half an hour of your life, mate.
Just go on.
Just 30 minutes away from me
50,
getting to 50. Come on, I can spare 30 minutes.
Yeah.
If only it was like that.
Is that on your 2020 goals?
I don't know.
Tick one of those
off
my
goal.
this year?
It's on my goal. I'm reluctant to put a timestamp on it because right now life is crazy. You just don't know what's going on. There's so many professional fighters now. I'm in Auckland, and then 1 minute I'm in frickin' Ireland when I don't expect to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, that 4 days before that I was expecting to be at home on the couch, and then I'm in the middle of Dublin or some crazy place. So it's hard to put a timestamp on things at the moment. Yeah.
But it's nice to know you're in Ireland and you're not losing any money when you're going over there, right? That's how it is now.
Nowadays it's a bit better for sure. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to add or say or make sure the people hear?
No, I enjoyed your guys' company. Yeah, this was this was a pleasant experience. This was my first ever podcast, and I will come on your podcast, Dan Hooker. Yeah, because he did ask for the exclusive. He did want me to, but
sorry, bro.
Sorry, Dan, but also can you come on our podcast too,
please? So now I do podcasts as well. Oh my gosh!
Something else.
No, thank you for having me.